Hello everyone, Chipapa here with another video of Stormground Age of Sigmar. Today I'm gonna do something different. Um I am gonna make a guide as a whole for the Maggotkin, but before I do that, I want to do a specific unit first, because if I include him in the guide, then the guide will turn out a bit too long. This guy I think deserves a guide of its own. This is the Lord of Plagues. Um, this is the Lord I use all the time, I guess, if it isn't apparent. I have never used the other choice here, which is the Corian. Most people actually use this one over the Lord of Plagues. Personally, I do not enjoy the playstyle. I like the tankiness of the Lord of Plagues, I like the utility, the skills, and everything. So, obviously, everybody's gonna be getting different items as they level. Up to level 20 you pretty much have the same items. After that it's gonna be random. For example, I got this shield over here. This gives me a huge amount of stats. Some of you will not have it, some of you will have a better one. I also have this one here, which doesn't give me as much stats, but it gives me immunity to knockback while I'm standing on corruption, and gives me regurgitate, which is not that great, so it doesn't matter. So yeah, so how do you build the Lord of Plagues then? So far, this is the best weapon I have unlocked, the one-handed weapon for the Lord of Plagues, and this is what I'm using right now. So if you don't have anything better, this is what you go for. The reason for that is because it gives you health. Health is not as good as armor in most circumstances, except for when you have this skill over here, which is called Gift of Calcification, which allows you to convert your health into armor. So how you do this is basically you spend one health point, it becomes armor, and then you can heal that health back in a plethora of ways of Nurgle. Basically you can go back to base to heal, you can stand on corruption, you can cast a healing spell, so on and so forth. You have many options to do that. So basically it's just free armor. Health is just extra armor, and yeah. As for the shield, if you don't have like any good shield, nothing, the resilient Vermid shield is like your go-to option, because it gives you the most stats. If you do have something like this, a better resilient Vermid shield, you go for it. If you have the fly shield, super good option on many cases. The knockback immunity is great. It's not just knockback, it's pulling as well. Everything is considered a knockback that moves you away or displaces you. So yeah, armor is cosmetic only, so it doesn't matter. And the most important thing that decides your build is your mutation. There are two mutation options. You can have the Gutbuster, or you can have the Tongue Lash. Basically, there are variations of these two abilities, but the base version is basically the same. So the Gutbuster allows you to knock back one tile, knock back a unit for one tile, and it breaks one armor. It does one corrosive damage. If they have no armor, that's just normal damage. So yeah, this is the Gutbuster, and the other one does the opposite and allows you to pull a unit in instead. So the best thing you can do here is pick, no, not this one. Default is the better one. Actually, this is weird because the default Gutbuster mutation is way better than the common Gutbuster or the rare Gutbuster mutations. Anyway, where I was going is here. Inescapable Tongue Lash mutation. You unlock this around level 10, 12, something like that. I don't know. Not sure yet. I don't remember rather. But this thing has a 4 range, which can be improved to 5. Its cost can be reduced to 0 and its cooldown to 1. This allows you for a lot of playmaking potential. Uh, but if you go for this, then you will have no offensive power until you bring out the big guns, you bring out the big units. So then your Lord of Plagues by itself is not gonna be a good damage dealer. He's just gonna be the machine that pulls stuff in or pulls them out of position, which is works. It's not bad, but he's not gonna be self-sufficient, and your early game is really gonna suffer if you go for this. You would think that in the early game you could pull stuff in, but against good players they will always position themselves so that you either don't pull them anywhere good, or you don't pull them at all. So yeah, this is a good ability, it's just that it can be easily countered and your early game will suffer and you can actually just lose the game straight up against Freya. If you pull her, that's just a free engage for her and she will kill your entire army. That's one example. The other option that I actually like more now is the Gutbuster mutation. I go for the default one, not even the common one. The reason for that is because this one has the lowest cooldown, the lowest cost. Well, it ties in cost with the common one, but it has the lowest cooldown. And this is really important because you can reduce this to 0. So you can basically cast this thing every turn. I could reduce the cost to 0 as well, but instead, what you do is you go for plus 1 damage, which brings you to 3 corrosive damage, which means you break 3 armor per hit. And then you give it -1 to Gutbuster or Vomit, cost and cooldown. So basically this thing is going to end up costing 2. It's going to have a cooldown of 0. And it's going to deal 3 corrosive damage. That's either breaking 3 armor or dealing 3 damage. The cost of 2 might be a little bit high, but it's not that high. You can actually realistically achieve it uh, really easily after turn 3 and so on. So yeah, this is what I'm going for. This gives you early game pressure, and in the late game you're a monster because you will be super armored and you will be constantly breaking the enemy armor. One thing you should know about the Lord of Plagues is that he will almost never be charging the enemy. He's always casting something. You will always have something to cast, whether it is the heal for yourself and your allies, whether it is the Gutbuster or the Tongue Lash. The cooldowns are really short. They are either one turn cooldown or no cooldown at all. So you're always casting something, and your attack is like really low. You're there to be tanky and to disrupt, and you will be killing stuff as well through Gutbuster, but not through melee attacks. There are builds with two-handed weapons that you can boost to 6 damage and so on. This is a 5 plus the skill with plus 1 damage that brings you up to 6 damage. But it is nowhere near as good as what I'm showing you right here. So the two options, the two types of builds you can go for is either Gutbuster or the Tongue Lash. Okay, so what skills do you use for the Gutbuster? Let's start here. You never leave home without Gift of Calcification. First of all, this thing is just a must. It's probably a bit busted. I think it should get nerfed to like have a cap, like at least 3 armor, not more, or 2. I don't know. But yeah, it needs a bit of a nerf probably, or make the cost higher, like 2 health. Even then, it would be good. Yeah, this thing costs no action. You can just move normally and do the normal stuff even after you cast it. So it's just free armor basically. And the longer the game goes, the more armor you will have. Twisted Ether Rejuvenation. This is a bit misspelled, but whatever. Yeah, the cooldown and ether cost of your Gutbuster. Really important. You cannot go Gutbuster build without this. You can, but you will not have a good time. The ether cost is huge, and the cooldown reduction is insanely good. This is so valuable. Guard, plus 1 armor, can't complain. I could go plus 1 health as well. It wouldn't be too bad, but I'm experimenting with something like with together with the Gift of Calcification. I actually start the game with 6 armor. 6 is a bit of a magic number because right now the most damage anyone can have without buffs is actually 6. So basically that damage gets reduced to 1, and there's a 24% chance that that damage gets blocked. So that is kind of a breakpoint that I went for. Another breakpoint you could go for is 3 or 4 armor at the start, because most units in the game have a damage of 3, like as you can see over here. So cheap units have a damage 1, 2 or 3. It's like around that ballpark. So having 3 or 4 armor really helps negate that damage. And taking 1 damage at the start of the game, you can just go back to your base and heal it back. It's like nothing. People won't even bother to attack you if they do 1 damage. Especially charging, they will not charge for 1 damage. So yeah, this is the Gutbuster build. The other build you could go for is you never change Gift of Calcification, obviously. You keep the Twisted Ether Rejuvenation, and instead of Guard, what you do is you go for the range on your tongue lash. Let's find it here for a little bit. Yep, there we go. +1 to tongue lash, Gutbuster, or vomit range. So you lose 1 armor, but you gain 1 range on your tongue lash, which makes it a 5 tile ability, which allows you to threaten things so far away. And if the opponent has a lapse in judgment and puts a unit in a bad position, you can immediately take advantage of that. The other two abilities over here are not going to be Warped Hammer Blow. You do not need this damage. It's not as good as with Corrosion because it's just regular damage, so it doesn't have the same effect. It does not reduce armor. What you do instead of these Warped Hammer Blows, what you get is a Plague of Debilitation. The reason for this, well, you could get something else like, I don't know, maybe Poison, maybe Plague of Corrosion, but they're not as good as this. So if you get 2 Plagues of Debilitation here, what happens is that your lord will not be killing anything anytime soon, but he will have a 2 tile range slow of movement and reduced cast range on the enemy. So you pull them in and then you reduce their movement. You will always keep them out of position this way and they will never be able to get away from you. So you will keep pulling them back and bank on the fact that you're tanky and they cannot kill you. So you keep pulling him to your base and eventually you will be able to spawn units that hit hard and can eventually kill that lord or that specific target that you're pulling. So that is the game plan with this ability over here. You don't unlock 2 Plagues of Debilitation until much later. It's like level 25 or something if I recall correctly. But uh, it's a valid strategy even without the Plagues of Debilitation, but it's just not as effective. You can go for other stuff until you get them. You could go for the Plague of Corrosion, for example, so that you deter enemies from attacking you in melee for fear of getting corroded. But yeah, it's a really good option. So these are the 2 playstyles you could go for on your Lord of Plagues. The other ones are not as effective. A two-handed build doesn't really work unless I don't know. So far with the items I have here, the weapons that I have, a two-handed build just hasn't worked. I wanted it to work. It looks super cool. Like, look at this. How badass is this? But sadly, it doesn't. It just doesn't perform. So we go back to the usual. Well, not that. That's not the usual. Not that. This and a good shield. Oh well. So yeah, I could be going for more armor here. It's just not worth it. Not worth it. Anyway, yeah. That's the Lord of Plagues, ladies and gentlemen. Other builds, when the patch hits, maybe we will explore other options. Maybe when I get if I get a better two-handed weapon with like 3 damage or 4 or something, or with a good ability. But until I do so, I will not try. Actually, the best two-handed weapon would not be with more damage than this. It would be with other stats like health or armor. That's what would make a really good two-handed weapon, in my opinion, because it would like remove the need for a shield. So yeah, this is what the Lord of Plagues is, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Soon I will be making the entire guide for the army. I just wanted to get this one out of the way because this is my favorite unit. I think he has a lot of depth. He might look simple in the surface because he's just a tanky blob most of the time, but he has so much depth to him. He has so many builds that could actually work if just a few things get changed. But we will explore that another time. Thank you for watching, guys, and I will see you around.